Hey, how's everyone doing? So this is going to be a very sensitive video, very important video, and a very serious video. Maybe my most serious video of all time, and it might be one of my longer on-screen videos that I've done because it is something I'm very passionate about and something that I think really needs to be really dissected and analyzed. So, I am a diehard NASCAR fan. My history with Kyle Larson, I actually did meet him one time. Me and my dad went to a Target autograph signing. He's a nice guy, no issues there. I think he is one of the most exciting young talents that is in the sport right now. I watched him rise through the ranks, and, I remember watching him at Homestead in an unsponsored black truck and racing it up to the front, and him being the next generational talent. He's such a great driver. The battle he had with Kyle Busch in the Cup race, just a few years ago, where him and Kyle Busch battled back and forth. You were beating and banging, and Kyle Busch ended up winning. The other day, I went on Twitter, and in the middle of the night, and I saw that Kyle Larson used a racial slur on the iRacing video game, or iRacing simulation, and in this day and age, people are always streaming things. It was streamed on Twitch. There were a lot of big name drivers in it, Connor Daly, Joseph Newgarden, guys like that. My immediate reaction was, whoa, I'm seeing this like all over Twitter. I'm like, I wasn't expecting to see this. So I'm like, well, I need to hear the video. I need to hear the audio of it, or, whatever's available. So, I go to YouTube and I listen to it, and I really did not think it would be the N-word, but it was. And the way he said it was really, really crazy, because he said it so nonchalantly. He said it with, the hard ER, and it was just such a weird situation, because it was like he was trying to get people's attention. He's trying to get his microphone to work, and he's like, hey, can you hear me? Can you hear me? And then he's like, hey, and then he says it. And, some of the people's reactions, it was just like pretty much silence. And then, there's one guy that's like, hey, Kyle, you're on, we can hear everything you're saying. And then one guy was like, yikes. And it was just super cringy. Like, he said it so nonchalantly. And it was just shocking. And I was really interested to see the NASCAR community's reaction to this. And that night, I definitely thought the reaction was overwhelmingly, anti-Larson and anti what he said, and they knew the repercussions were going to be big. I thought that, many people were saying, like, he's going to lose his sponsors, he's going to lose his ride, and, and I was actually proud of the reaction that I saw by the NASCAR community. Because, if you don't know anything about NASCAR, obviously it's a very, predominantly white sport. There's, it's a very southern sport. And, there's been some racism things involved with NASCAR over its, over its entire history. And over the last, I'd say 10, 15 years, NASCAR has definitely been getting way better as far as, its diversity program and, getting minority drivers in the spotlight and getting them better opportunities to rise up the ranks. Kyle Larson actually is one of the Drive for Diversity program drivers. He's half Japanese. And I was just appalled by the whole thing. So I immediately started to analyze the situation that night, and I was thinking, when's the last time we had an issue like this, as far as like somebody using a racial slur in the sport like that? And honestly, I immediately thought back to 2009 when during a nationwide race, Brendan Gaughan's crew chief, Brian Barry, I remember this plain as day. There's a driver named Mark Davis who is African American. He was in that race and he collided with Brendan Gaughan on pit road. Really rookie mistake by Davis. But Brian Barry, Brendan Gaughan's crew chief, was so furious, and he, apparently was saying racial slurs on the radio, and then he went after Mark Davis in the garage and was calling him racial slurs in the garage and everything. One of the most disgusting parts about this whole thing was Brian Barry, he got suspended just for a few weeks. It was only like 3 or 4 weeks, and he was reinstated and allowed to come back, and he was crew chief in Brendan Gaughan before you know it, and it really flew under the radar as not that big of a deal, which is just crazy to me. And I feel so god awful for Mark Davis and black fans all over, NASCAR that had to deal with that. And, I have the same feeling with this. I just feel so bad for them that they have to be, still going through this in this day and age. I'm very passionate about the subject. And, I love seeing black fans. I love seeing, minority fans. It's just, when stuff like this happens, it just makes me feel so bad for them. Another incident I wanted to bring up was Matt Crafton and Junior Joyner last year. This is another one that nobody ever talks about. So during the Bristol night race, Matt Crafton and Stuart Friesen got into a wreck, and apparently Junior Joyner was saying on Matt Crafton's radio a ton of homophobic slurs. Now, this isn't racial slurs, but it's still homophobic slurs, it's discrimination. And it was really talked about on Twitter, really talked about on NASCAR Reddit, and as far as anyone knows, nothing ever came of that either. But this one was bad because there was never anything as far as a fine or any suspensions or any repercussions whatsoever, unless NASCAR did it behind the scenes. Now, that always just blows my mind how that flew so under the radar and no one ever made a big deal about it, by the next weekend, really, it seemed like. So now I just want to transition to day 2 of this. So day 2 is going to be very interesting to see what exactly the repercussions are going to be for Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson did release a statement on this second day, and he was apologizing, and he definitely seemed like it was coming from the heart, that he wasn't really reading off a script, in my opinion. And, I seen one guy say that it looked like he had just finished crying, which, I wouldn't be surprised by. He definitely, it was obvious. He knew that he really fucked up, and that, he's really going to have to face these consequences. Chip Ganassi is his team owner in the Cup Series, and I think he was the very first one to really, hand down any type of punishment. And pretty much his punishment was he was going to be suspending Kyle Larson indefinitely. And then next thing you know, NASCAR suspending him, Chevrolet suspending him. And, everybody was waiting on the sponsor reaction. He's got some big name sponsors. He's got McDonald's, he's got, Credit One, Clover. And they pretty much immediately terminated their contracts with him, which I completely agree with, because I'm sorry, if they don't terminate their contracts with him, that is such a bad look on them. And they're pretty much condoning what he said. As I said, this was pretty much to be expected. By the end of the second night, I started looking at the fan reaction again, and I feel like it completely flipped on the second day. It was pretty much, now that it was becoming such a reality to everyone, that this was such a serious situation, and that these things were actually happening with his sponsors, that they were actually upset. And, it blew my mind, people's reaction. I'm telling you, it was the majority of people I saw were upset that his sponsors were dropping him. And they were saying, stuff like, I don't understand how they can say the word, but we can't say the word. And, people really were just exploiting their ignorance. And a lot of people were showing their blatant racism that they have underlying. And it was just, I was just disgusted and just really, really appalled by the whole thing. And people were really feeling sympathetic for Larson, and I just didn't understand it at all. One of my favorite sports shows that I watch is called First Take. It's on ESPN. They never ever do NASCAR topics. I've seen them do a couple, ever, and it was pretty much about Danica Patrick and then Kurt Busch about his domestic violence, but literally just a couple. They actually brought this story up on, the final segment of First Take on one of the days, and I was very interested to hear their opinion on it. And their opinion was exactly mine. Like, you should never, ever, ever say that word. They weren't surprised by the repercussions that Kyle Larson is facing. So by the third day, Chip Ganassi Racing officially terminated their contract with him, and that was like, the big one. When he loses all of his sponsors, there's no way Chip could keep him. I don't understand why people don't understand that. I've seen so many people that are furious at Chip Ganassi Racing, Chip Ganassi, and they don't understand why he had to be terminated from his contract. It's like, even if Chip wanted to just suspend him and keep him, down the line and keep him as a driver down the line. He couldn't. He doesn't have any sponsorship and he can't be funded. So I don't understand why people don't understand that. This is for any driver that doesn't have sponsorship, really. You can't survive. So he lost his ride, and the biggest, just on a side note, the biggest name to replace him is probably Ross Chastain. I mean, he's got to be the #1 target to replace him for numerous reasons, but that's an aside. Day 3 was more of the same with the fan reaction. I was just disgusted. Everyone well, not everyone, but the majority of people I saw were just really upset that, about him being fired, that him losing his sponsorship, and saying like all this stuff that's just ridiculous. Like these are the consequences he deserves. And when I listen to these guys on First Take, and I listen to the Pat McAfee show, and I listen to all these analysts and these people from other sports talking about it, I think their opinions are spot on. But it's like, I feel like the NASCAR community, for the most part, are the ones that are like against all of this happening. I'm not saying that every NASCAR fan is racist. I'm not saying that. But people are just missing the point, I feel. The majority of the people are missing the point. A lot of people in the NASCAR community will say, I don't condone the word, but I don't think he deserves all this. And it's like, it's just ridiculous. And another thing about all of this that I just completely didn't understand, none of the drivers were speaking out against this. And it's like, I've seen so many people say, oh, well, they just didn't want to get involved, and they don't want to talk about their friend that way because NASCAR is such a tight-knit community. But it doesn't make any sense. Nick Bromberg, who's one of my favorite NASCAR riders, a lot of people hate him, but he made such great points. There's no reason why NASCAR drivers couldn't come out and denounce the use of the word. It doesn't matter if you're friends with him or not. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not going to affect you negatively for your own sponsors if you're denouncing a racial slur. It doesn't make any sense why they would be affected in any way. What is Dale Jr. going to come out and say, I completely disagree with the use of the N-word, and then Leaf Filter's going to drop him? Like, it doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So it was really disappointing to see pretty much no drivers coming out and, talking about the issue. Joey Logano did an interview on TV, and he was asked about the Kyle Larson situation. And, his response was pretty much what I expected. He was just like, it's an unfortunate situation that, we are under a microscope 24/7. And, he's right. He's definitely right. But you would wish he would say more, in my opinion. I know an African-American woman, and I asked her opinion on this, and I showed her, all the angles and everything that's going on with this. And her response, she was disgusted with the use of the word. And, she actually was saying how she wouldn't give him a second chance at all. She said, once you're a racist, you'll always be a racist. There's nothing you can change about that. So she doesn't think he deserves a second chance. Now, he is going to have to go through sensitivity training, and it's going to be a long road to recovery for him to get back into NASCAR. It's really going to take a long time. But once he does the sensitivity training, and once he, can rebound and, resurrect his career, he could come back. And I read that he does want to come back, and he does want to be back in the Cup Series. I've seen some people say, well, maybe he'll just stay back in dirt. And no, that's not what he wants to do at all. I mean, come on. You know how much money you can make in the Cup Series, and how much money he was making in the Cup Series, that now he's throwing it all. He just threw it all away. Millions and millions of dollars just down the drain. So this just goes to show you, obviously the black community is still really affected by this word, and for good reason. It's not a good word. And a lot of people I saw saying, people are just so sensitive, it's just a word. It's not just a word. It's just fucking ridiculous, and it makes me want to fucking slap these people. It's not just a word. And as far as the issue goes with, but they can say it, but we can't, that's so besides the point. And Stephen A. Smith said it on First Take. As unfair as that might be, that's just the world we live in. In my opinion, I really don't care. Like, I don't care that they can use the word and that we can't. Like, I don't want to use that word. And this woman that I was talking to, she's of the mindset that nobody should be using that word. And there are a lot of people that have that mindset. Jay Williams on First Take has the same exact mindset. You know, a lot of people have that mindset, just nobody should be using the word. But anyway, just to continue. So all of his big name sponsors dropped him. And there were a few smaller sponsors, mainly in his in his dirt series, that were pretty much gonna say, we don't condone the word, but we're gonna stick with him. We're gonna stick behind him, and we believe in second chances and everything. And one of those was PlanBSales.com. Now this is like the major diecast distributor. Lionel creates the diecast, and Plan B Sales is like the main one that like sells them. I bought from them before, and I'm not gonna buy from them again. I'm sorry. Like, you could say I'm overreacting, but the fact that they're just immediately gonna back him after he apologizes, I'm sorry. Actions speak louder than words to me. It's the exact reason why these sponsors dropped him. So for them to just immediately accept his apology and say, we're just gonna stick behind you, I just don't agree with that whatsoever. I'm not gonna be buying from them in the future. I had that diecast on pre-order later in the year that I'm really excited about, but I sent them an email, a long email detailed of what I was upset about and where I stand on the subject, and I told them I'm not gonna be buying from you guys again, and I want a full refund, and I want to cancel my diecast. I will gladly get it somewhere else. They had a timely response and a timely refund, and these are the consequences these companies are going to have to take for, sticking behind him so quickly. Now, this leads me to another topic, the second chance. I haven't gotten into this yet, but when this initially was happening, one of my first reactions was, I definitely believe in the second chance. I think he deserves a second chance, but, and this is a big but, he has to do the sensitivity training, and I think he needs to do a lot of community work. A lot of community work in the African American community. He needs to do a lot of charity work. He needs to really prove that he's, sorry for what he did and that he's completely regretful for what he did. If everyone just stood behind him after he says sorry, and they just like how Plan B Sales is doing, if everyone did that, he wouldn't learn his lesson. As crazy as all of this is, he needs to learn a lesson. He really does need to learn a lesson. And he needs to do all this stuff before he earns a second chance, in my eyes. And this is down the line. I'm saying a year, 2 years from now. Who knows? It could even be longer. You never know. But yes, I do believe in the second chance, but he needs to prove it. He can't just earn a second chance right off the bat. That's just ridiculous. Another thing nobody was talking about for the longest time, and this is one of my first reactions to the whole situation, was I was like, he made a racial joke during a rain delay last year. I specifically remember watching it live. Marty Snyder goes into his motor coach, and Kyle's playing video games or whatever, and Marty's like, you're really good at video games, and Kyle's like, what is that, an Asian joke? And it was a joke, and he said, I can say that because I'm Asian. I'm probably gonna get in trouble for that. And there wasn't any like repercussions for that, as far as I know. I mean, there wasn't any fine or suspension, and he is half Asian and everything. It makes you wonder if maybe someone talked to him behind the scenes and said, like, you shouldn't be saying that, like, please try to watch your mouth. But when he does that and then he does this, it shows a pattern. And like I said, the way he said it, you can tell he said it a million times in his life. Nobody just says that word so nonchalantly with the hard ER, like it's nothing. No one says it if you're not a racist. He is a racist. Once again, going back to the NASCAR community, I'm tired of these people saying, he was just messing around, or like, you can tell he's not a racist. He was just joking around. Like, what are you talking about? The way he said it, you can tell he's a racist. He said it a million times. Like, these people that want to talk about intent it's just fucking ridiculous. So anyway, all of this has happened over the last few days, and today Bubba Wallace released a statement, and I was, really curious to hear his opinion on everything. It was a very long statement, and I'm glad he released a statement. I thought it was a good statement, and I've seen everyone reposting it, and most people thought it was a good statement and liked the statement, and really appreciated what he had to say, and I do too. Like he said in the statement, whether he liked it or not, he was immediately having to deal with this right off the bat. He was having to deal with this no matter what, because he pretty much is our black ambassador for the sport. So overall, this is just a very emotionally draining event that's happened over the last few days for me. I'm very passionate about this subject, and the reason why I am so passionate about it is just because I have gotten a lot more educated on the subject over the last few years, and I've learned a lot that I didn't know in the past, and it's just ignorance on my part, and I feel like this ignorance still lies in a lot of white America, honestly. And I feel like people need to get more educated, and they need to learn more about minority groups. And I'm not perfect. I'm definitely not perfect, and I have a lot to learn and a long way to go. But I think people need to make strides at learning from situations like this, and not being so hard-headed and looking at things with an open mind. We all have a lot to do. We all have a lot of growing to do. We all have a long way to go. So overall, like I said, just a shocking and really saddening situation. It really runs the gamut of emotions. It makes me sad, makes me angry, makes me shocked. The first night I was really kind of proud of how the NASCAR community was reacting to the situation, and then day 2 and day 3, it kind of just went downhill for me, because it seemed like people, once they saw the reality of the situation, they all changed their minds on everything. And that was just very disheartening to see, and it's the reason why we deal with the stereotypes in NASCAR as fans. It's the reason why we deal with the stereotypes that we do. Not everyone is like that. Not everyone is a racist. Not everyone is a, Southern hillbilly that's, locking arms with the KKK. And obviously my main reaction is I'm disgusted with Kyle Larson. And, it's just, it really tells you a lot about a person when they do something like this. And another thing also, I'm tired of hearing people make the excuse, oh, he's just a young kid. Young kids make mistakes. This man is 27, married with 2 kids. He is not a young kid. He's not 17, 18 years old. He's been around the block a little bit. I'm just tired of seeing that excuse. He's old enough to know better. So I really wanted to get a really good gauge of everything as far as people's reactions, whether it be media personalities, the drivers, the teams, the sponsors. I wanted to get everyone's opinion really all out there before I made a video, and just so I could really digest the situation and whatnot. So overall, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know your opinions in the comments below. I am open to reading anyone's opinions, and whether people agree or disagree, or however they might feel. So that's all I got. Please comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.